Hi, good morning, everyone. This is the weekly Jupyter Dev meeting. Today is May 9th, and I'm going to head over to our Dropbox paper notes for Tuesday, May 9th. If you scroll up to the top, I've added a new link, a new bit.ly link to the Jupyter team meeting archive. This is a different link than what we've had before. This should take you to an index of our archive meetings. So currently I have all the meetings that meeting notes that we created in Dropbox paper, and I am 50% finished with moving all of our old archived notes from HackPad into Dropbox paper. So keep an eye on that spot, and that should eventually give a list of all of our meetings that we've had in both paper and in HackPad. All right, so scrolling down, we have our links to our old notes and then action items from last week. So anyone who's interested in learning how to deploy NB Viewer, talk to Min. We should have more than one person who knows how to do it. That makes a lot of sense. Next, we have some older action items. So those of you who are on the call, in the meeting this week and haven't attended in the last couple weeks, it would be great to check some of these off if these are complete. So first, if you have thoughts on user stories for configurable exports from the notebook interface, ping Mike. Next, IPyWidgets needs to check its minimal notebook dependency, test, and document it. So that's something that we'll do as soon as Jason and Sylvan and team hit the IPyWidget 7.0 beta. So we'll loop back in once that's released. Then Grant and I have been working through the Jupyter Notebook issue log. We closed out 100 issues last month in April. So we're going to keep hitting that, keep working toward that goal. And that's about 270 open issues by the end of May. We seem to be adding about 50 to 60 new issues a month. So if we can at least get 100 done a month, we'll eventually get ahead of ourselves. But I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Red Queen hypothesis. It's basically you run as fast as you can just to stay in the same place. It's starting to feel like that model of evolution currently. So hopefully we can check that off soon. Next, Jupyter Lab extension handling underwent a major change in 0.20. There's the link to the issue, and we'd love folks in the community to write extensions to test that, the extension handling in 0.20 or 0.20. And then finally, Matthias, are you still looking for feedback on your async REPL implementation?
Yes, on that and a couple of other things as well.
Now those to the action items for this week. All right, Ian is out today, I believe. Oh, hey, Ian, you're here. Are you taking capturing action items this week, Ian? Probably catching him off guard because I think he might be at a conference.
But he's listening in, and his internet's kind of sketchy.
Okay, I gotcha. Are you able to capture action items, or should we move? Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Wonderful. All right, next, we have our weekly news by organization. So folks from the community who are interested in these different project areas, IPython, Jupyter, Jupyter Lab, Jupyter Widgets, and Jupyter Hub, you can click on these links to see what we've been up to over the last week. And of course, team leads, you're welcome to use that information to report on your work today. And then moving into the different project areas. On the project management side, things have been winding down a little bit at Berkeley this last week, so it's been fairly quiet. I've been working with Fernando, Brian, and Anna on the team meeting agenda, plus some other things that we've had in the works for a long time, just trying to wrap those things up. And that's pretty much all I have for this week under project management. So let's go to Notebook. Grant and Thomas are madly editing. You guys ready?
Sure. So not a lot of not a lot of updates on the notebook side of things. Just triaging issues, as Jamie said. That's about it.
And I was the one that was editing. So I went to iAnnotate last week, and one of the conversations that I had in terms of the context of annotation in the notebook, since it's now an actual like W3C like entire spec, would be to have people in the pager or their tabbed doc strings and help that comes up, the ability to annotate there and have that annotation not link into the currently active notebook, but into the actual GitHub repo of the project that is being helped upon, if it exists. Something along those lines sounded like it would be possible, and it would be a great way to use the notebook as a passageway to encouraging better and easier contribution around documentation.
Right. That sounds great, Mike. We got a lot of head nods, silent nods. That sounds good. Good response.
The best kind of head nod.
The best kind, yes. No finger wags. All right, great. Did you want to move into
Sure.
NBConvert?
I'll just
Mike?
keep talking about NBConvert. So,
Wonderful. Thank you.
talked with a good number of people last week about how to solve the problem of dropping through text raw from within Markdown cells without having to be in a raw NBConvert cell. Plenty of discussions about the dangers of extending Markdown and all of that, but nonetheless, we're at least for the SciPy proceedings, it looks like it's going to be needed in order to, or something like it will be needed in order to get the proceedings up and running in a reasonable amount of time, and it may be useful to the rest of the notebook. We'll see. I won't be able to be spending too much time on that this week, but probably in a couple weeks I'll have more updates. And then the other thing was, let me just look. Oh, that was another use context for hypothesis is sort of from the publication point of view. So since this is NBConvert, that's the closest thing we've got. So for one of the problems with notebooks on GitHub, because they are rendered, you can't do line comments on them because there are no lines. And one of the solutions to that might be using something like hypothesis annotations to highlight the appropriate amount of the text, and then have that linked into some kind of GitHub automation tool that would create an issue and it do all the things that GitHub does now when you do use a line comment, but from the perspective of a annotation, which would then make notebooks that much stronger of a use case in GitHub for collaboration and everything. That's it.
And I'll quote, if I might, throw a quick thing on the NBConvert angle. My initial experiments with using Headless Chrome to do PDF generation are okay. It does still segfault all over the place, but it is Chrome Canary. So that's a but I'm very bullish on our ability to make good use of that for a non-tech workflow for generating PDF.
Awesome. So is the idea there, you have a headless browser, you're generating the HTML, it's rendering it in that headless instance, then converting that to PDF as though you were to print to PDF inside that headless browser? Right,
and that's if I can't get access to even the lower level rendering engine that'll let me actually pull the DOM, because then you get everything. So It'll either work with static HTML, or it would work against a live running whatever. So one could imagine many things there. Awesome.
Grant, did you have any comments on that as well? Looks like you were having some deep thoughts.
No, I'm just thinking about it.
Okay, cool. Great. Thanks, Mike. Right. Services like kernel gateway, Docker Stacks, MB Viewer, none today. We might We had something up in the action items with MB Viewer, but there was no work to report today. Dashboard and related extensions, that's usually Pete. He's not here today either, so we will continue down the list to Jupyter Lab, Steve, Darian, and Chris, if you're here.
Okay. This past week, worked on another iteration of the extension system, hopefully moving closer to the final implementation. Based on some feedback from Sylvan, who was our first person trying to make an extension that uses another extension. So thanks for that feedback. That will be released today as Jupyter Lab 21. The other activities that will feed into that is Brian has been moving forward with notebook cell design, and parts of that will be in 21 as well. Past that, Nick has been working on using Yarn as a replacement for NPM, because Yarn allows us to do completely offline installs. So its offline mode actually doesn't try to talk to a registry if you've got all the files, whereas NPM will. So we think we should be able to get that to work, but he's still working through some of the issues with that. Additionally, we broke apart. We are leaning toward having a placement of file equals installing of Jupyter Lab extensions, so that a conda package or a wheel can just put a file in place. We pick that up and rebuild the app as necessary, and then the user can just refresh the page with that installed app without having to do anything else on their own. So making that workflow work, the offline install work, I think that shows a lot of promise. So Nick's forging ahead with that part. Darian is working on the settings system implementation, with the initial being just using some private files in the directory where the notebook server is launched for the settings. Eventually that being moved to more like what the current NBConfig setting system looks like, where it's actually ready to known other locations on disk. And I think that's it for Jupyter Lab. Anybody else want to chime in?
I got a question.
Sure.
So regarding the extension system, are there any breaking changes?
From what was there now, it's just a slight, should be just slight CLI changes in terms of how you launch it. So I've updated the contributing guide and the other tutorial guides to reflect the changes in workflow. Okay. There's NPM is no longer part of our pip command, so that's those are separated now. Mm-hmm. And there's the way the fallback core Jupyter Lab is handled is slightly different than it was before. The change that accommodated what Sylvan needed was that you can now link in a package that is not an extension. So if you Jupyter Lab extension link something that isn't a package, it'll still get linked in, but it won't be part of the installed packages. So you can work on, if you're simultaneously editing another library like he was, that will still be considered a linked package.
Okay, that's good. And regarding the Yarn integration, would that potentially just be a flag that you would include, like you do like a -- yarn in the future if we wanted to use Yarn in lieu of NPM?
If it's compelling enough, we might just say that we require Yarn because of the reproducibility and the offline capability it gives. That still remains to be seen. Nick, you trying to talk?
I can talk.
I saw your lips moving.
Yeah, I'm trying to say something. Yeah, so basically, there's a couple options there. One, we can just pack the 3 megabyte Yarn JavaScript binary internally. And so this is our Yarn, right? And nobody else can mess with it. Mm-hmm. And then it's an implementation detail to the outsider. So you basically want to end up where you have a valid NPM package. However you get there, we don't care, right? But then once it crosses over, Yarn takes care of it once you put it into the system. So, yeah.
And it's much better, right?
I tried it from the standard Jupyter Lab dev workflow, and if you blow away node modules and you've got a Yarn lock file, mm-hmm. It takes about 2 minutes for NPM to refresh, even from its cache, versus Yarn taking 17 seconds.
Right.
So
And then
definitely some wins there.
yeah, with the as we're thinking about this, we'll probably end up with a Jupyter Lab dev subcommand tree. You know, the one that actually requires all the yarn junk. And with that, the way that I've got it set up, live editing of your extension, if, for example, you're just editing straight ES5, renders in under 2 seconds.
That's fantastic.
So you're into that loop of I'm hacking, I'm writing, I'm hacking, I'm writing. So it's really, it has a lot of potential.
Would it be possible for this cache to be shipped with a wheel or Kanda package so that people don't need to have a,
Yeah, so
That's the intention.
I don't know how to solve it for pip, but you know, we can look at PyMini Racer or whatever the right hack is to get Node on a pure pip install, or maybe we can't support it. I don't know. But with Conda, the build slug for everything, including Webpack, PostCSS, all that noise, no TypeScript, is 17 megabytes. So it's 17 megabytes of tarballs that basically doesn't compact any further, which I think is not unreasonable. And then the individual extension packages have no overhead at all. They only have what new dependencies they brought, and those are strongly versioned with semantic grouping.
because when you build let's say IPy widget on a machine that's not very powerful, like on a Raspberry Pi, I noticed that when trying to build the classic notebook, that most of the time is spent actually downloading. It's not a very fast. I mean, network is really slow on these machines.
Right. Yeah. And so that's definitely a big goal. And the other is to make it easy to get back to known good builds, et cetera, et cetera. And if we can do that, then we can start, you know, do IPFS or GitHub or S3 or whatever, and publish some known good ones if, you know, if we need to. For exactly that.
I do think we should prioritize getting all of this to work well on regular machines before we worry about the Raspberry Pi use case.
Sure. Yeah. It's just what can we push to build time, right? What can we actually have accomplished statically? So, you know, if all of the second-party Jovian widgets, if you want an environment with all those, that should be a no-op, or not a no-op, but it should be download this 1 5 megabyte file or 10 or whatever, however big it is. But yeah, works for developer first, for sure.
So one thing that happened to us when we were trying to update everything for a demo was that some second-order dependency had a breaking change in a minor version. So they were breaking Semver. And so this is something that we noticed at install time instead of build time. So with the old way where we ship a bundle, only the packager who actually is producing the bundle would have noticed the breaking change in a second order dependency, while here it's anyone who installs it, so it's more frequent.
Right, which is the crucial part to being able to get back to a known good build. So you should always be able to run with core, right? And be able to use that core to help you debug what might be wrong with your build. But the best answer is
make a good build of IPJS.
Sylvan, that's what you're saying though is just not true, because if there was another extension that you installed in the old system that had a better matching Semver version, which was the one that was broken, that would have been used instead of the one that was shipped with your bundle. So in this case, it would have been fine if you were the only one shipping the dependency and you were on the old non-broken version. But as soon as somebody else used the better broken version that violated Semver, it would have broken for the runtime user as well. So it was just,
although we were the only one shipping Vue.js, so
yeah, but it's like it's not fair to say that the old version wouldn't have broken when it would have. It was just your particular use case wouldn't have broken. That doesn't make the older system any more sound.
Yeah, and even for 3JS, like there's 2 widget packages that right now that are using 3JS, and they could possibly use different versions. So even 3JS is right now an issue.
We'll see how it goes.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Steve and Nick. everyone for the update. Hey, Sylvan, wanna roll right into IPyWidgets? Sylvan or Jason?
I mean, we were all over to San Francisco last week, and we had a demo with Mike at the Data Science Fair, and then a talk about IPyWidgets at PyCon, which went really well. And that's when we worked on updating everything to the latest Jupyter Lab. And that's why we had this this feedback. Also, yeah, we just started a discussion with Brian, but we should continue offline on electing some different things into core IPyWidgets, so especially the scales. So yeah, so there's something that's ongoing. So if anyone is interested, you can ask and offline, and we will just pull him into the conversation. That's it.
Thanks, Sylvan. Jason, anything you would like to add?
Yeah, just we've been working on the test suite, auditing issues for friendliness, and we have a new contributor that we met in Berkeley. So thanks.
Great. Awesome. Jupyter Hub. Carol, no Min today.
No Min today. Min is traveling and everybody's gearing up for PyCon. It will be an amazing showcase of all things Jupyter. We've got a lot of our developers going to be there. It kicks off in Portland on Wednesday with tutorials, and there are quite a few data science, scientific programming ones, as well as Jupyter and IPython specific ones, talks at the Education Summit, a lot of talks on the schedule. We have two very near and dear members of our community, Katie Huff and Jake Vanderplas, doing keynotes, and lots of sponsors that have been very supportive to us over the years. So if you're at PyCon, check them out. If not, the videos should go up pretty quickly, so you can watch from home. And last year we did some open spaces with Alan Downey and Luciano and Andrea Zonka, just real informal for an hour, answering questions. So hopefully we'll do that as well. And feel free to tweet at me if you're there and are looking for Jupyter folks. And as far as Jupyter Hub, we're just moving right along. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Sounds fun. All right. Next, we've got IPython. Matthias. You are on mute.
Nothing particular. I'm just focusing on PyCon these days. There are a couple of open PRs if you want to have a look, and still the async stuff and the completion stuff that has been pending for months now.
All right. Did you want to just articulate, Thomas, did you want to articulate your bullet here in the IPython section? Thomas has disappeared. Well, I'll read it. So I'm not sure how much you want to get into this, Matthias, but it says we're getting various issues reported with JEDI completions, principally around performance. Do we have a reasonable expectation of getting this properly solved? Is it a question of whacking performance moles one by one?
I've been working on that when I have some time. JEDI master is already much faster than stable, and people can tweak. We have option in IPython to change how much time we give to JEDI to do completion, but it's also a question of some upstream libraries that are doing weird stuff that you technically should not be doing in Python. But you know, doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing is not something we're good at. So we'll try to see what we can do about that. But it will be, I mean, people can still deactivate JEDI if it's really a problem.
All right. Thanks. I'm channeling Thomas today. He is only listening. So Thomas, if you have further questions, feel free to post them in the chat, and we can verbalize them here in the meeting. All right. You're welcome. Okay, next we have another section with plumbing and packages, etc. And usually the one who fills out that section, so he's not in the call today or on the meeting in the meeting today. So we'll skip through that. Governance, Brian, do you have any governance updates that you'd like to share with the group? Can no longer
no.
see.
Well, although one thing. I'm going to, while I'm here in New York, talk with Jason and the other Jupyter Lab team about implementing some of the changes to the labeling system we're using. Some of that's based on Jupyter Lab's evolution to using Lerna, and now we have a bunch of separate NPM packages. So I'm imagining we'll probably evolve our current component prefix into something like basically map it onto the packages that we have so we can track issues for each NPM package. And there was other feedback that various people had given, so I think we'll be looking at that. One nice change that I think it was Carol recommended in the notebook repo was the relabeling of no action to reference the milestone. And I think that's a really nice, more friendly way of closing issues and indicating to people that they may still be useful, they're just not currently on our radar. And so I think I'm going to propose doing that in Jupyter Lab as well, and I'll update the pull request I have describing these things. So
the other thing we did in IPyWidgets is change backlog to future to more clearly indicate this is something we're going to look at in the future. It's not like a negative thing, a backlog or whatever, and it seems a lot more friendly as well.
Yeah, I mean, that we can look at that. The only thing about backlog is that it's a very common word, a common way to describe that aspect of a project in other project management contexts. But,
right. At the same time, we aren't technically using Agile, and already there's been confusion from project members about it. So yeah, it certainly deserves discussion.
Yeah,
but.
So.
Yeah, we certainly need better structures for tracking which feature requests and enhancements we decide to do, things that we receive that are a great idea but not on the current development horizon, and then stuff that requests that are somewhat out of scope but we want to keep around. And then issues that are questions or kind of one-offs or kind of edge cases that we help a user solve but don't tend to come up very often. So yeah, after responding to probably over 100 issues in about a week, I did start to pick up some patterns, but it's a pretty complex ecosystem there. There's quite a few decision points in what we want to do with the issues, and where to store them after we take action on them is definitely something that team will want to massage out over time, because I think the evidence of the decision doesn't get left in the issue. So finding a group of things that you made a decision on, it can be a little bit challenging.
Yeah.
So cool. All right. Sounds good. Next, that was governance. Next week, conferences and outreach. I'm gonna skip to the team meeting, the spring team meeting. So Anna is listening in today, but she's in a coffee shop and it's too noisy. So I'm going to read the information that she wanted to share. So Brian, Fernando, Anna, and I are putting together an agenda, and we're at the point where we can share that document with the team. If you have suggestions for things that you'd like to discuss, the link is provided in the notes down there, and it says team meeting spring. So go ahead and see what we put together and add things that you would like to discuss or follow up on from the next meeting, and we'll get those items on the agenda. Also, JupyterCon registration is open, and I'd like to ask the team members here in the meeting to go ahead and follow and retweet JupyterCon on Twitter, and that's just twitter.com/JupyterCon. And in any events that you go to over the next couple months, go ahead and mention the event, JupyterCon, the dates and the website. And it looks like Anna has postcards and other marketing materials available, and let her know if you're interested in distributing those, and she can ship those out to you. Let me see if there's anything else in the chat.
Who has control over the JupyterCon Twitter?
Anna will have to answer that. I think it's probably O'Reilly, but Anna, you can correct me on that. Yeah, it's Anna says O'Reilly is tweeting about JupyterCon. So for those who are watching, O'Reilly is working with us to produce our first JupyterCon, and they've been incredible and extremely instrumental in moving everything forward to have this event launch in August. So it's been great. Okay, so for other conferences coming up, we have PyData Paris. Please share PyData Paris with your colleagues, everyone. I know Sylvan, are you coordinating PyData Paris?
Yes, I am.
Great. So as Sylvan's team members, it's our job to help promote PyData Paris and help support Sylvan in this. So
I've got a huge auditorium to fill. Like it's like 400 seats, so I won't be able to fill it, but I have as many slots as needed.
All right. Great. Pack the house. Great. All right. Jupyter Day Philly is coming up May 19th. Of course, JupyterCon is coming up starting next week. Jupyter team meeting is also at the end of the month. We've got PyCon Taiwan, June 9th through the 11th, PyParis in June, EuroPython in July, SciPy in July, Science Gateway's Community Institute webinar on July 18th or 20th. Carol's presenting, and then in October, Grace Hopper celebration, and Jupyter will be participating in Open Source Day. All right, so let's see, action items for this week. Before we kind of go into the closing segment, do folks have anything else they'd like to add? Okay, feel free to interrupt me if you do. Action items for this week, we just have one. Remember to register for JupyterCon. I'd also add, tweet out JupyterCon, any announcements or any promo stuff. We could get that added to the action items. That would be great. Releases from last week, Min released MB-DIME 0.3. And this week, Jupyter Lab 0.21 or 0.21. These are updates to Jupyter Lab configuration handling. And sounds like it'll happen after the dev meeting today. We got a nod from Steve. Cool. All right, thanks. Anything else, folks? All right, let's thank the community. If you could stay on after just briefly. A couple more announcements. That's it. Thanks.